Have you ever stopped to think that the food sitting on your plate right now, the dishes you've eaten countless times without giving it a second thought, might all trace back to a single place, a single moment, or even a single person you've never heard of? Imagine if that meal came from a region that barely existed just 2 centuries ago. What if some of the most iconic American foods didn't originate in New York, Texas, or any other place you'd naturally assume? What if one state quietly reshaped the world's food landscape and nobody ever mentioned it to you? That state is California. Welcome to the birthplace of so much of the food we take for granted. Today, we're diving into 10 foods born in California that didn't just nourish a nation, they left their mark on the entire world. If that sounds like a story you don't want to miss, subscribe now, because we're only just getting started. Food number 1. Avocado toast. Nowadays, it's practically the unofficial emblem of millennial culture, snapped for social media millions of times daily, humorously blamed for everything from skyrocketing housing costs to defining a whole generation, and served in cafes from Tokyo to London. But the story of avocado toast didn't begin with brunch trends or Instagram fame. It actually started back in 2006 at a Los Angeles cafe, where chef Suzanne Goin of Lucas Restaurant first served thick, toasted slices of bread topped with creamy, smashed avocado, years before the dish became a cultural phenomenon. The twist? Avocados themselves had been thriving in California since the 1870s, quietly waiting over a century for someone to put them on toast. What Goin did wasn't just whip up a tasty snack. She created a plate that captured an entire generation's craving for something simple, fresh, and unapologetically Californian. That single dish went on to ignite a worldwide food craze worth billions. Food number 2. The California roll. Many people assume sushi is an ancient Japanese tradition, arriving on American shores exactly as it existed in Tokyo. But the California roll tells a very different story. It actually originated not in Japan, but in Los Angeles during the late 1960s. Chef Ichiro Mashita, working at Tokyo Kaikon in Little Tokyo, faced a challenge. Fresh tuna was difficult to come by, and American diners were hesitant to eat seaweed-wrapped rolls. His solution was ingenious. He swapped out tuna for creamy avocado, rolled the sushi inside out to hide the nori, and added crab. Here's the kicker. The California roll is widely credited with making sushi approachable to the Western world. That means nearly every sushi restaurant around the globe today owes a little of its existence to a clever workaround dreamed up in downtown LA. It wasn't just a compromise, it became a gateway, opening up a whole culinary universe to millions who might never have dared to try raw fish otherwise. Food number 3. The martini. When you think of a martini, images of Manhattan penthouses, old Hollywood glamour, and James Bond probably come to mind. Sleek, timeless, effortlessly sophisticated. But the historical trail actually points not to New York nor London, but to a small gold rush town called Martinez, California, in the 1860s. The story goes that a miner, flush with gold and eager to celebrate, walked into a local bar and requested something special. According to some accounts, the bartender, possibly named Julio Richelieu, mixed gin, vermouth, and bitters, and served it under the name Martinez. The drink eventually traveled west to San Francisco, where it was refined, renamed, and ultimately became a global classic, conquering bars around the world. Here's the shocking part. For over a century, New York quietly claimed the martini as its own, and almost nobody challenged that. California had crafted the cocktail that would define elegance for generations, only to watch another city take the credit. Few drinks carry such quiet, golden injustice, and yet, very few have ever gone down quite as smoothly. Food number 4. The cheeseburger. While the hamburger has plenty of origin stories, the cheeseburger itself has a single birthplace, Pasadena, California. Back in 1926, a 16-year-old fry cook named Lionel Sternberger was working at his father's sandwich stand, The Right Spot. On what was likely just another ordinary afternoon, he made a spontaneous decision. He placed a slice of American cheese on a sizzling beef patty. He served it, the customer loved it, and that simple, almost throwaway choice by a teenager quietly became one of the most beloved food pairings in human history. What makes this story even more remarkable is the scale it reached. Today, the global cheeseburger industry is worth an estimated $100 billion a year, all born from a kid who probably wasn't thinking about fame or legacy, just lunch. That's the magic of California food history. Some of the biggest culinary ideas didn't come from Michelin star chefs or corporate boardrooms. They came from ordinary people, in ordinary moments, who tried something new without overthinking it. That crispy, golden, undeniably satisfying impulse now nourishes the world every single day. Food number 5. The fortune cookie. At first glance, fortune cookies feel unmistakably Chinese. The perfect, mysterious ending to a Chinese restaurant meal, steeped in wisdom and tradition. But here's the twist. They're not Chinese at all. They were actually born in California in the early 1900s, and the story of their origin is still fiercely debated between two men. Makoto Hagiwara, a Japanese immigrant who managed the Japanese tea garden in San Francisco's Golden Gate Park, claimed he was serving them as early as 1914. Meanwhile, a Los Angeles noodle maker named David Young insisted he invented them around 1918, handing them out to hungry people on the streets. What makes this story truly astonishing is that when fortune cookies eventually made their way to China, locals saw them as completely foreign and dubbed them, with charming irony, American cookies. A treat the world now associates with ancient Chinese wisdom was actually created by Japanese and Chinese immigrants in California, claimed by no one entirely, and then sent back to Asia as a novelty. In a way, the fortune cookie is a perfect symbol of the immigrant experience. Born from a hunger not just for food, but for meaning, luck, and the hope that something good is always waiting just around the corner. Food number 6, Cioppino. Step into any upscale seafood restaurant today, and you're likely to see Cioppino on the menu. Rich, deep red, fragrant with garlic and wine, brimming with clams, shrimp, and crab, served as if it has always been a dish of sophistication and careful design. But Cioppino wasn't born from refinement. It was born from necessity. In the 1800s, Italian immigrant fishermen working the docks of San Francisco's Fisherman's Wharf would return from long, exhausting days at sea and throw whatever scraps they had, leftover crab, odd cuts of fish, broken shellfish, into a communal pot with tomatoes and wine. The name itself probably comes from the Ligurian word gin, meaning to chop. A simple word for a simple, humble act. Here's what really makes the story remarkable. Many of the fishermen who invented Cioppino were too poor to eat well on their own. So they created a system of shared generosity, each man contributing what little he had so that everyone could enjoy a warm, nourishing meal. That instinct to transform scarcity into something abundant and comforting is now served for $40 a bowl in waterfront restaurants around the world. It turns out survival can taste extraordinary. Food number 7, ranch dressing. Ranch is so ubiquitous in America that it almost blends into the background. The default dip, the automatic drizzle, the thing that shows up on every table without anyone stopping to ask where it came from or why it exists. But its roots are surprisingly humble. A hidden ranch in the hills of Santa Barbara County, and a man who was a plumber by trade. Steve Henson, a self-taught cook with zero formal culinary training, first whipped up his buttermilk and herb dressing while working a construction job in Alaska in the 1950s, feeding hungry workers who couldn't get enough of it. In 1954, he and his wife Gail bought a small guest ranch called Hidden Valley Ranch near Santa Barbara and began serving the dressing to every visitor who walked through the door. Guests loved it so much that the Hensons started selling dry seasoning packets by mail so people could recreate it at home. Here's the stat that changes everything. Ranch has been the best-selling salad dressing in the United States for more than 30 years straight, overtaking Italian dressing in 1992 and never looking back. A plumber with no formal training, working a construction job in Alaska, accidentally created the most dominant condiment in American food culture. Sometimes the most ordinary people quietly leave the most extraordinary legacies.
Food number 8. The popsicle. It feels like it's always been around. A universal childhood treat, timeless and simple. Too basic to seem like it had a real inventor or a real story. But it does, and it begins in San Francisco in 1905 with an 11-year-old boy named Frank Epperson. One chilly winter night, Frank accidentally left a mixture of powdered soda, water, and a stirring stick on his porch. Overnight, the temperature dropped, and by morning, the liquid had frozen solid around the stick. He tasted it, and by all accounts, it was the best thing an 11-year-old in 1905 had ever tried. Here's the bittersweet part. Frank didn't patent his creation for another 18 years. In 1923, he filed for it, calling it the popsicle, and began selling them at a local amusement park. His own children adored them so much that they started calling them popsicles, and the name stuck forever. Eventually, Frank sold the rights for what today would seem like a shockingly small sum. One cold night, one forgotten drink, one accidental discovery. And today, billions of popsicles are enjoyed around the world every year. In a way, childhood itself was born on that San Francisco porch. Food number 9, the French dip sandwich. With a name like that, you might assume it sailed straight from Paris. Crusty bread, thinly sliced beef, and a rich, savory juice for dipping, all exuding a vaguely continental elegance. But the truth? It was born in Los Angeles, and, like so many classic California foods, its origin is beautifully contested. Two L.A. restaurants, Philippe the Original, founded in 1908, and Cole's Pacific Electric Buffet, also opened in 1908, have been claiming credit for over a century, each with its own colorful story. Philippe's story goes that Philippe Mathieu, the French immigrant behind the restaurant, accidentally dropped a roll into a pan of roasting juices. He served it anyway to a police officer who loved it so much he returned the next day with friends. What makes this quietly extraordinary is that both restaurants are still standing today, still serving French dip sandwiches, still arguing over who invented it, still drawing crowds who come as much for the history as for the food. In a city built on reinvention and impermanence, these two spots have spent over 100 years anchored to a single sandwich, a single dispute, and one deliciously accidental moment. Some rivalries lift everyone involved. This one certainly does. Food number 10, sourdough bread. Sourdough feels timeless, and in many ways it is. But the specific sourdough culture that dominates bakeries worldwide today can be traced directly back to San Francisco and the gold rush of 1849. Miners flooding into California needed bread that could survive without refrigeration, fresh yeast, or any of the comforts of the kitchens they'd left behind. They discovered that wild yeast strains in the cool, foggy San Francisco air created a natural starter, producing bread with a uniquely sharp, tangy flavor unlike anything else on the planet. Boudin Bakery, founded in 1849 by French immigrant Isidore Boudin, has maintained the same living sourdough starter for over 175 years, through earthquakes, fires, and the complete transformation of the city around it. That starter was so precious that during the 1906 earthquake, a Boudin family member reportedly ran through burning streets carrying it to safety. What does that mean for you today? The artisan sourdough you enjoy in bakeries from Paris to Melbourne to New York exists in its modern form because gold rush miners needed sustenance, and because one family refused to let a living piece of history die. Resilience, it turns out, can rise. And I don't hesitate to say it. Sourdough is, without question, the best bread you can eat. 10 foods, 1 state, and every single one tells the same quiet truth. California has never just been a place. It's been a permission slip, a permission to experiment, to stumble into greatness, to arrive with nothing and create something the world ends up craving. From a teenager's impulsive slice of cheese to a child's forgotten frozen drink on a winter porch, these foods didn't just feed people, they redefined what people thought was possible. If this story hit differently than you expected, give it a like. It genuinely helps others discover First Taste. Subscribe to keep uncovering the hidden histories behind the food on your plate. And tell me in the comments which of these 10 surprised you the most. I have a feeling the answers are going to be all over the map.